You walk into a coffee shop planning to spend $3. You walk out having spent 5. At the movie theater, you intended to buy the small popcorn, but somehow left with the large. When shopping for a new phone, you budgeted for the base model, but drove home with the premium version. What happened? Did you suddenly become irresponsible with money? No. You got played by one of the most powerful psychological tricks in marketing, the decoy effect. And it's costing you thousands of dollars every single year. Let me paint you a familiar picture. You're at the movies, hungry, but trying to be smart with your money. You tell yourself you'll just get the small popcorn. You don't need the bucket-sized portion or the extra calories, and you certainly don't need to spend $8 on corn. Then you look at the menu board. Small popcorn, $6. That feels expensive, but whatever, you're at the movies. Then your eyes drift right. The large popcorn, this massive tub, is $8. That's a lot. But wait, there in the middle sits the medium popcorn at $7.50. Your brain instantly calculates. The medium is $7.50, but the large is only 50 cents more? It would be stupid to buy the medium. You're getting way more value if you spend the extra 50 cents for the large. So you buy the large. You walk away feeling like a savvy consumer who just hacked the system. But here's the truth. You didn't get a deal. You got manipulated. You walked in planning to spend $6 and walked out spending $8, a 33% increase. All because the theater placed a medium option on the board that they never expected you to buy. That medium popcorn isn't a product. It's a psychological weapon. Here's the problem with the human brain. We're terrible at judging absolute value. If I showed you a random car part and asked how much it costs, you'd have no idea. $50? $500? We simply don't know the intrinsic value of most things. We're comparative creatures. We can only measure things in relation to what's sitting next to them. Marketing teams know this intimately. They know that if they present a product in isolation, you might decide it's too expensive. But if they present it alongside a decoy, an option that's deliberately terrible, suddenly the expensive product looks like a bargain. The decoy effect is specifically designed to shift your preference between two options by introducing a third. In the popcorn example, the theater doesn't care about selling the medium. The medium exists solely to kill the small. Without the medium, you'd compare the small at $6 to the large at $8 and think you'll save $2. But introduce the medium at $7.50 and the comparison shifts. You stop looking at the small versus the large. Now you're comparing the medium to the large. The large dominates the medium so significantly in value per dollar that the small becomes irrelevant. You stop thinking about the absolute cost of $8 and start thinking about the relative gain. A huge bucket for only 50 cents more. Now you might think, okay, so I spent an extra $2 at the movies. Who cares? But this architecture of choice is embedded in almost every financial decision you make. Look at Apple's pricing strategy. Go to their website and try to buy an iPhone. You'll see storage options. The base model with 64 gigabytes for $400, the next tier with 256 gigabytes for $550, and the top tier for $700. The gap between entry-level and mid-tier is designed to make you uncomfortable. 64 gigs isn't enough, you tell yourself. But then you look at the mid-tier price of $550 and it feels steep. Until you notice that for just a bit more, you could get into pro territory. The middle tier is often priced awkwardly high to make the top tier look reasonable. You walked in wanting to spend $400 and walk out spending $700, convinced it was the smart, logical choice. This happens with car trim levels too. You see an ad for a car starting at $30,000. You go to the dealership, and the base model feels cheap with its cloth seats. The limited trim is $40,000, a painful $10,000 jump. But there's the premium trim for $38,000 with almost everything the limited has, except maybe that panoramic sunroof you really want. The dealer has priced the premium so close to the limited that you think, well, for only 2,000 more, I might as well get the fully loaded one. The premium trim is the Decoy. It exists to make the jump from base to limited feel smaller. The danger of the Decoy Effect is that it creates constant upsell leakage in your budget. Think about coffee. Starbucks uses tall, grande, Vini pricing to perfection. The price difference between a grande and a Vini is minimal, maybe 30 or 40 cents, but the volume difference is significant. You almost always upsell yourself to the Vini because the math says it's a better deal. But is it? If you didn't need 20 ounces of coffee, you didn't save money. You spent 40 extra cents. Do that every day, and that's $150 a year. Multiply that by every subscription where you picked Pro instead of Basic, every fast food combo where you supersized because it was only $1 more. We're bleeding thousands of dollars annually in value upgrades we didn't need. We become efficient shoppers buying inefficient amounts of stuff. So how do you fight back? First, learn to spot the ugly brother, that worst version of an option that exists solely to make the expensive choice look good. When you're shopping, look for the medium popcorn, the print-only subscription, the weirdly priced middle option. Once you spot the decoy, you break the spell. Second, define your absolute needs before you ever look at the menu or price list. If you decide you want the small popcorn, put on blinders when you get there. Don't look at the medium. Don't do the math. The math is a trap. The moment you start comparing, you start losing. Finally, remember this. You cannot bank price per ounce. You can only bank dollars. If the large popcorn is a better value per ounce, but you throw half away, you lost money. It's better to pay slightly more for exactly what you need than to get a great deal on excess you don't need. The Decoy Effect is everywhere. Your grocery store, streaming services, vacation packages. It's a tax on your attention. But now you know the trick. Be the person who orders the small popcorn, who drives the base model car, who keeps their money instead of trading it for perceived value that disappears the moment you walk out the door. Your wallet will thank you. See you in the next video. Subscribe.